Hello everybody, it is the Dark Conservatarian and I am back with another Strike Force editorial, this time about abortion stats and fetal facts. Now this video is mostly intended to address all the common arguments that I mostly hear regarding the abortion debate, and I'm going to be just presenting the facts of how well they align or don't align with those arguments that I hear often made. And so I'm, for the most part at least, I'm probably going to bring in my own beliefs occasionally, but for a good portion of the video, I'm going to just shelve my own abortion beliefs throughout this video. Now, one belief regarding pregnancy and abortion that I did not think was as used as much as it actually is the belief that that unborn babies are literally not human and not alive.
When a woman gets pregnant, that is not a human being inside of her.
Now, just from the get-go, you think that this belief right here would be so stupid that you wouldn't even have to provide any sources proving the contrary to this point right here. But I just heard this talking point repeated so many times to the point that it has become just inane. When really, according to Princeton University and many other websites too, they are human beings at the moment of conception. Even pro-choice, PhD biologists fully admit that these unborn are in fact human. And according to evolutionnews.com, they are in fact alive. And even just putting aside all the research here, you can just tell by just looking at the vital signs like the beating heart and so on and so forth of the fetus that they are in fact alive. Now, I think that the argument or the wording that pro-choicers want to come up with is that they are not persons, which whether or not fetuses are actually people, that argument aside, that is a completely different argument from whether or not they are humans, because whether or not they are humans and what species unborn babies are and whether or not they're alive, that is the biological or scientific debate rather. That is not the philosophical debate. The philosophical debate is whether or not they are persons, and I think that is what all you pro-choicers are trying to get. Now, of course, not all pro-choicers actually believe in this talking point, but for all the pro-choicers who unironically say and believe this, you need to get straight your own languages in your own arguments. Otherwise, you keep on saying that they are not human and not alive, like literally not human and not alive. You just sound like a flat-out biology denier, or a science denier rather. One of the absolutely most common arguments I hear for allowing abortion in recent years is the talking point that before Roe v. Wade was passed, women died from self-induced abortions. Or as my opposition puts it so eloquently, with coat hangers up their twats, quote unquote.
You would have women dead in high school bathrooms, in alleyways, with coat hanger abortions.
When I tried to go researching this myself, the most that I could find was roughly a yearly average of 300 deaths from self-induced abortions before Roe v. Wade, as claimed by Dr Nathanson, former abortionist turned pro-lifer, who said, quote, "We fed the public a line of deceit, dishonesty, a fabrication of statistics and figures. We succeeded in breaking down the laws limiting abortions because the time was right and the news media cooperated. We sensationalized the effects of illegal abortions and fabricated polls which indicated that 85% of the public favored unrestricted abortion, when we knew it was only 5%. We unashamedly lied, and yet our statements were quoted by the media as though they had been written in law," unquote. And for another source, the National Institute of Health has said that the stats on self-induced abortions are unknown. And the CDC, the numbers for deaths from illegal abortions was as low as 39 in 1972, the year before Roe was passed. I really wouldn't put it past it if some of these were self-induced. NIH, CDC, Nathanson all have slightly different readings on what self-induced abortions look like here in the States. And yes, you have plenty of anecdotes that go mentioning stories of deaths from self-induced abortions. But strictly talking stats and looking at what data we do have, the theme is still consistent that self-induced abortions are virtually non-existent. Statistically speaking anyways, especially in comparison with the average of about 1.3 million abortions happening per year since Roe v. Wade passing. So with all this in mind, I'm going to go ahead and give my opinion and say that if Roe v. Wade was repealed and a blanket ban on abortion, which I'm not even currently advocating for anyways, was executed, self-induced abortions would likely not skyrocket or rise by any real considerable amount.
And then late-term abortions, that's almost non-existent. 90+% of abortions are done within the first 20 weeks.
While yes, the general claim that the vast majority of abortions happen before 20 weeks is statistically true, the raw numbers still put that over 10,000 late terms happen yearly, so the point seems almost moot. And that's not even considering in all the pro-lifers who want to ban abortion for earlier than 20 weeks gestation. But then of course, pro-choicers will come back with this general statement regarding late-term abortions.
And also, 90% of late-term abortions are because of either rape, incest, life of the mother, fatal fetal defect. And in those circumstances, you should never be against abortion.
Whereas most abortions are actually found to be done in the name of convenience, more they are in the name of rape, life of mother, or incest. And in Florida, it's even more so that is the case. Now those numbers are of course explanatory on abortions overall of all stages of gestation, not just late terms. So those numbers do not necessarily translate to be the same ratios when it comes to late term abortions. But according to the Lausier Institute, as they say, quote, reporting on the results of a study of late term abortions in 2013, Foster Kimport in the journal Perspectives on Sexual and Reproductive Health, a publication of the pro-choice Guttmacher Institute, the authors acknowledged that data suggests that most women seeking later terminations are not doing so for reasons of fetal anomaly or life endangerment. Using interviews and questionnaires, the authors compared 272 women who had abortions at 20 weeks with 169 women who had abortions prior to 20 weeks and found that the rationales cited by the two groups were essentially the same. Stressful circumstances of unprepared pregnancy, single motherhood, financial pressure, and relationship discord. Aside from this, though, the data regarding late-term abortions and the reasoning for why that women get them is unfortunately hard to find. And the last claim that I want to address before I wrap up this video,
90+% of abortions are done within the first 20 weeks, which is before the nervous system develops, so the fetus doesn't even feel pain.
ignoring the fact that some pro-lifers don't even take feeling of pain into consideration on whether someone, even a fetus, is a person or not, the statement that the nerve system isn't fully developed until around 20 weeks is accurate. But taking into consideration that fetuses as early as 8 weeks react to pain and stress stimuli, likely not in the same way as born people do, but still, the statement that they don't feel pain is likely an oversimplification of the issue. That's all that I have for right now on this issue. Chances are, though, that I will likely return sometime in the future with a part 2 on this subject in this similar format. But for right now, I just wanted to avoid being so long-winded. Though, before I clock out, there is one more thing I ought to do. Obliged by an old friend's overdue request for an example on this.
But in life of mother circumstances, that is different. And generally, I think that should be allowed. But even so, there are some medical procedures that are able to save both the life of mother and child, and an abortion wouldn't be necessary.
Can you give an example?
So far, I'm unable to find any examples of life-saving procedures for avoiding life-of-mother abortions. In fact, I'm finding the opposite so far. That's all I have for right now. See y'all later, and God bless.